Hello and thank you for choosing us this afternoon. I am Pule Molebatsi, taking you through this week's inspiring journey of yet another trailblazer, a hero in his own right. He is just as driven as he was right at the beginning of his career. His name is Siphile Buthelezi, a lawyer who used an unconventional approach to make it into law school and survive tertiary. This is his story.
His story would typically be started off by a cliche statement from taxi driver to a lawyer. But Siphile Buthelezi has a rather different outlook on how to begin a journey to fulfilling dreams.
Begin with the end in mind. If you don't have the end in mind, you might as well not start. Because the end is where you want to go.
Ndunduma is a small village in KZN where dreams seem as insurmountable as their mountains. Siphile hails from this very village.
My parents were tenants at staying in a one-room shack. So that way, the three of us were born as the kids of the two construction worker and the domestic worker at the time.
His fascinating tale was not one of finding a princess, but rather of finding wisdom on how to defeat poverty.
I was a full-time student that between 2003 to 2006, studying law. Basically, what I used to do is, because I come from a very poor background, if I can put it that way, my parents definitely, there's no way that they would have afforded to take me to varsity. So after finishing matric, I stayed for a year at home because we didn't have funds. And then during that year, I then raised funds working with my dad in the construction industry, which I'm grateful for now because I always say that I am a plumber. I know how to do plumbing, and I still do it now at my house. So then the following year, 2003, then I enrolled at Worsville. Obviously, again, my mom's boss, she assisted with the registration fee and said to me, Siphile, you'll pay me whenever, once you've made it big, you are a big lawyer, then you can pay me back. I'm still very much grateful to her.
Siphile, with the end goal in mind and wisdom to pursue a goal, took on a job that no student would think of taking on.
I had an idea, and the idea was a simple one: to get a driver's license with a PDP and drive taxis. Spoke to one of the taxi owners. His surname was Mr. Sibego. He's late now. Told him about my situation, my background, my difficulties, my financial difficulties, and he said, okay, he will give me an opportunity to drive. In fact, my proposal to him was basically an opportunity for him to be able to give his drivers leave.
Now with a PDP and a taxi, the reality of transporting his varsity mates was now real.
Then on Friday, the taxi driver at the time would bring a taxi to me at varsity or address. I would drive because the classes would finish around 12:01. I would drive from 1 o'clock on a Friday till late, Saturday the whole day, Sunday the whole day, and early hours of Monday, depending on whether or not I had an early class. So that was my life. And then if, for example, I had a test on a Monday, I will still drive. And then at the taxi rank, I will carry my box with me. When I'm waiting for my turn to take my load to the destination, I will take out my books, study. At the taxi rank on Queen Street in Durban, the fellow taxi drivers actually gave me a name. They said Isfundiswa, which means that a learned one.
Being a taxi driver is not an easy task. It's hard enough with people that don't know you. So imagine with people that do know you.
What is very interesting, though, I must say, is that my passengers were fellow students because the taxi association that I work for, they own the routes between Westville campus of UKZN and to Durban, the CBD. So your students, fellow students that lived in the nearby townships and workers, those were my passengers. I remember my first load, and the taxi rank was actually inside campus. My first load, fellow classmates were actually in my first load. I still remember one because she's a friend of mine, Zola Mapumulo. If you have taken a taxi, you'll know that passengers will go in and then wait for the driver to come around, and so the taxi was full, and then there's Sipile on the driver's seat, and I could see it because people knew me. They were like, okay, what is it doing? I remember Zola saying, Uti Sofia Jelasi Akon. I laughed.
That's how we separate Sipile's story from the rest and make his tale the best and most humbling.
It is certainly refreshing to see the taxi industry through such positive eyes. We are not done yet. We continue with Sipile's story shortly. Let's take a quick break.
Romantic adventure film starring Ivan Buerta and Donnelly Roberts. The story begins in the beautiful vineyards of Paarl in the Western Cape. The adventure takes off when the characters find themselves on the tropical island of Love, Mauritius.
Josephine's work is more interesting and distinguishable. She visits war-stricken zone countries to tell the story of the damage war often leaves behind.
In this particular exhibition's case, places that are named after conflict or disaster or war or reconciliation.
And basically what it is it's a collection of the best animated short films from around the world this year. And the idea is to inspire animators and directors with this exciting content. And so that's been offered to us as a cinema, and we're very excited to be screening the animated show of shows here in South Africa.
Join Refulwe Mulwa for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Welcome back to the show. Sipile always had an end goal in mind. As seen earlier on the show, this helped him stay focused on his goal. He tells us more about the value of committing to your passion, even when the road is full of twists and turns, in this next insert.
He was nicknamed Sfundiswa, translated as Learned One, because he saw a future in his law books. He realized the warrior in him and took charge in nurturing it.
Giving up is not an option. I grew up being told that the challenges that you are facing today, you must view them as a stepping stone. Once you step on top of them, you are able to be on another level, and they remain under your feet. And that's how you walk tall, with your shoulders up, and say no matter where you come from, no matter how you are brought up, but that does not determine the future. And I think I am a perfect example of that.
And this is how Siphile stepped on top of his challenges.
Taxi business or taxi driving, if I can put it that way, it's not an easy job. It's long hours. You have a target. You have passengers that some of them are rowdy. We have passengers that didn't know that I was a law student, who definitely looked down on me. I mean, it is a given fact that many people look down on taxi drivers for various reasons, as I mentioned. So, and remember, some of these people, the next day or the following week, I need to be in class with them.
With no option to fail, Siphile remained rooted on his goal to finishing his law degree, understanding that the very people mocking him were somehow contributing towards achieving his degree.
Having to work when you know exactly that at the same time, and as much as you want to do this, but you still want to pass, you have an exam the following week, you have a test the following week, but at the same time you need to work. It can be embarrassing. There you are at the taxi. I'm sure you've never seen a taxi driver at the taxi rank sitting and studying in the middle of the taxi rank. I did it.
Now looking back, Siphile joyfully laughs at misconceptions that people have about taxi drivers, which he gladly straightens out for us.
One, they are uneducated, they are rude, they are filthy. Trust me, there are quite a few taxi drivers with at least matric, and who were in the same situation as Siphile, had no money to study further, and they had a next door neighbor who owned taxis, and they asked him for a job.
Although Siphile says he was never tainted by the negative, rude passengers, instead he tried to change all wrong stereotypes his passengers had about taxi drivers.
I was never rude. If there is a passenger, there is a fellow student that can say Siphile was ever rude to me, I can, without being scared that somebody will come out there and say, no, Siphile was rude to me, I was never rude. Yes, I was very clean, as I am today. So I can tell you there are a lot of reasons, unfortunately, that contribute to a behavior of any individual. It doesn't matter where you work. I mean, if you go to people who always complain about public hospitals and nurses and say that they are rude, they're all of that. It's the pressure, it's the working conditions. So same as in the taxi industry.
In his suit and tie today, he can proudly say that the plan was well orchestrated.
After finishing my studies, I knew exactly that I wanted to work for one of the big law firms in South Africa. That's where I wanted to start my career. Fortunately, I got very good results at varsity, and I was able to get into the big law firms. So I worked for one of the, let's say, top 5 law firms in the country, known as Bowman Gilfillan Attorneys in Sandton. So if there are any issues, just
He did not only work for the biggest law firm, but also got an opportunity to go explore more on litigations overseas.
In 2010, there is an opportunity, it's called South African Visiting Lawyer Program, to New York, where, for example, they take in all 9 provinces, they advertise, lawyers in all 9 provinces apply, and they take 1, 2, or 3 sometimes in the whole country to New York to work for one of the top firms in New York. So in 2010, I was able to be chosen in the country to work in New York and Manhattan for Davis Polk and Wadwell, It's one of they call them white shoe firms in Manhattan, New York. I work for them. And then after that, then they seconded me to Morgan Stanley in New York. Came back to South Africa in 2012. So it's late November 2011. Went back to work at Bowman 2012. Worked at Bowman for 2012, 2013, 2014. December, I then resigned.
Just like back in university, Siphile understood that with any great thing he has achieved, there's even a greater thing he can achieve.
Siphile's story validates the saying that life is a journey and not a destination. Every achievement has given way to many others that followed since he started his career as a lawyer. He tells us how these achievements have afforded him the opportunity to give back to his community.
Children's rights in health are a priority in the journey of good health.
All children should have access to adequate health care, not only curative but preventative as well.
How to identify ADHD on children.
ADHD is a childhood disorder which manifests with the symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, and or inattention.
Is breastfeeding still a vital nutrition to babies even today?
Breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life is absolutely crucial.
Catch Health Talk with Dr. Sello Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 a.m.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Let's join Siphile as he takes his skills back to his community to empower those who are less fortunate.
Siphile Buthelezi has a resume that is a bit unusual. Under previous job title, he has taxi driver, and proudly so if you ask him. He molded his trophy before he could even get it. That's the beauty of his turning point. He resigned from one of the biggest law firms in South Africa because of a bigger vision.
The main reason for resigning basically was to start this law firm, my own law firm, Buthelezi Vilakazi Attorneys, where we have offices here in Sandton, we have offices in Durban, Umhlanga. Basically, it's a 100% black-owned law firm, and with a special focus on black-owned businesses because we're a corporate firm. So yeah, this is how, and that's how Buthelezi Vilakazi Inc. was started. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary this year, Jen.
Indeed, his vision came to light.
The first year was quite good. The firm has a bright future. So yeah, that's how I'm sitting here today as the managing director of Buthelezi Vilakazi.
Knowing how to possess the power from within and exerting it to achieve dreams, the power of law allowed him freedom of other projects.
I do a lot of things in terms of helping out. In fact, I consider myself now not just a lawyer. I consider myself a businessman, an entrepreneur. For example, I'm the Secretary General of Progressive Professionals Forum. which is an NGO that mobilizes professionals to be involved in decision making in the country. Many of us, we get our paycheck on the 25th. We don't care what is happening in politics and government. We are not involved. So the whole idea in terms of forming PPF, because I'm also the co-founder and the Secretary General, was really to mobilize professionals to be involved in our communities, in body politics of this country.
Now skilled, experienced, and with his own law firm, Sipile reached out to a center in Katlehong to help children that are mentally unfit to prepare for court.
I'm also the chairman of the chairman of the board of Egupoleni Mental Health and Trauma Center, which is situated in Katlehong. It is an NGO that has been around for years, that focuses on mental health, trauma. We also prepare rape victims for court, which I think then that's, basically talks to my profession as a lawyer also.
One of the councillors from Egupoleni told us more about Sipile's contribution to the center and improvements he's made.
Ubaba Buthelezi usijoyine ngo-2012, mina ngiqala ukumazi ngo-2012 mangangena ku-board yethu. But since afikile ku-board besinaye kubopha siyakhona youth program, social crime prevention. So ibopha siyakhona abafana laba badlala ibhola. So abafana ukuthi sibathole la kumphakathi wethu, abafana laba abaningi beba involve ku crime. Abanye banama learning difficulties because uyazi ukuthi umphakathi wethu if umuntu seka reach age of 18 years akakhophi esikolweni, isystem iyamkhipha esikolweni. So yena wabona ukuthi njoba abafana laba ikhishwa ku system thina la ekupholeni singenzani. So yena weza kithi azogive a speech abanikeza ihope.
Not only do you give back to where you come from because giving is a gift, this is how Sipile did it.
I also have a project called Back to Kasi. The idea behind Back to Kasi was that once we have made it, let's say you grew up in Alex, you grew up in Soweto, once you have made it, you move to the north. There's nothing wrong with that. But what ends up happening is that another young Sipile growing up in the streets of Alexandra does not see the Sipile, the lawyer, anymore. He sees another Sipile or Uchablane or Uputmandla in Alex who is actually a criminal, who is who sells drugs, and sees him because he drives that nice car as a role model. Because Sipile, the lawyer, no longer goes and drives and spends time in Alex.
He makes sure to change at least one child's life with tertiary fees and necessities so they don't go through what he went through.
I always make one example with the guy, his name is Genius. Through my bursary, I'm not assisted by anyone. Today he's got an engineering degree. I save throughout the year, and then at the end of the year I go to the school and say, please give me the top 3 performers in the school in matric, and then I make sure that they are enrolled with the university.
Beaming when I asked him about having his own taxis, Sipile cheerfully answers.
I represent, in fact, a taxi association. It's a long-distance taxi association that basically this association is our client. I represent them. So then, as their lawyer, they then asked if I would be interested, in being a member of the association. And the association is seized with transport. It's in charge of, you can say, 90% of the long-distance routes to KZN. For obvious reasons, I respect the industry. It gave me a break when nobody else could hand me money and say, Sipile, here you go, take care of yourself. But it was for the industry. I always say that I sat down and asked myself, if it wasn't for the opportunity that was given to me by the taxi owner, late Mr. Sibego, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. Maybe I would have given up at varsity.
Babdlala seemed to have remembered only good and positive things about Sipile's taxi driving days.
uSiphiwe umuntu oright, sisebenze naye isikhathi eside kakhulu umshayeli wamatekisi wazazongena la emsebenzini obuloya njobe yiloya njengamanje umuntu okude kakhulu emsebenzini wakhe akawenzayo ukhuthele futhi ngimfisela inqubela phambili ekhulu kulokho akayikhona kulezi izinga kulona kuphephe phezulu noma ngamthola sekuthiwa iadvocate ngelinye ilanga ngajabula kakhulu.
Egupoleni is grateful for Sipile's help and hand of grace towards their community center, and this is what they had to say.
Nento engathanda nje ukuthi ngisho kuba Bophelezi ukuthi into esithandayo sasiqhenya ngayo because kumphakathi wethu abantu abamnyama is very few abantu othola ukuthi bayaphumelela and then babuya back futhi ku grassroots level bazosiza umphakathi wethu, so sithi siyabonga, keep it up ngomsebenzi awenzayo.
His story is inspiring, humbling, and empowering. It really doesn't matter where you come from, but where you're going that counts.
I knew that I basically had the responsibility to change the situation back home, and there was never going to be a miracle. Anyway, I don't really believe in miracles. People work. People make it in life because they work. They've done all that they can to actually get into a better level.
You at home can be part of the movement. Share with us how you are playing your part in shaping our continent in a manner that we can all be proud of. Thank you for watching Africa. Until next week, it's a goodbye from us here on the show.